Okay, so your reading this week is going to come from chapter 6. Just the first part. The textbook goes through modeling a two-story house interior. We're going to be doing something similar. We're modeling just a little tiny house. It is still 2 stories. So a lot of it is still relevant, but this isn't quite the project that we're doing. So you'll read through page 145. This goes through modeling some walls and floors, stairs, all of which we will do today. And then stop at the beginning of page 145 where model the living room starts. So just that first part. Some reminders and tips as we get started. So this will be starting out your final project. I mentioned that last week. We'll just kind of keep on building on this tiny house, and then at the end of the semester, you'll turn in kind of presentation boards for this project. So just to kind of keep in mind as we're starting this project, we really want to be using groups and components. Groups are just going to make your life so much easier. It's easier to manipulate and separate geometry. And you can always create groups within groups or components within components. Remember, that's called nested. So it'll really just help you with organization, keeping things separated. And we'll definitely be using a lot of them today as I go through the assignment. The second thing is to use tags. We haven't gotten into tags too much, but we'll dive more into them today. Tags are similar to layers, just another way to help you keep your model organized, and it'll be, if you're using your tags correctly, you'll easily be able to turn on and off different objects so that you can get into certain areas, see what you're modeling a little bit easier. So they will definitely be your friend as we go through this. And then also just a reminder, we've looked at a few different view styles that you can use to help you see your model. We've looked at X-ray mode. We've looked at changing the edge color, whether that be by the axis, so that you can tell if you're modeling parallel to the axes. So just remember that you can always play with the different styles to see what works best for you and helps you with your modeling. So let's go over a few things in the textbook before we get started on the actual assignment. One of the things that it does talk about is tags. I'll pop over to SketchUp here. So a tag is a layer. They used to be called layers in SketchUp, but a few years ago they changed it to tags. Not super sure why. I'm sure there was a reason. But tags are basically a visibility property. You can turn them on and off to make things visible or invisible. And that will enable you to do things such as view and work in areas that are obscured by other objects. You can present different design options by using tags. Maybe you've got one design option on one tag and another on another, so you can just easily turn those on and off to show different options. And they also help organize the model. Also, once you start getting into kind of a bigger model, when you turn off layers, that kind of helps speed SketchUp up a little bit because it's not trying to kind of render that data each time you're orbiting around and moving around the model. So sometimes you might find it helpful to turn off different layers if you're not directly using them at that time. When a tag is turned off, only the visibility is affected. So it's still present in the model, and if it's touching other objects, stickiness is still going to take effect. Even if you can't see it, it'll still happen. So you can easily deform a model by forgetting that you have geometry that's hidden or turned on a tag that's turned off. So just be wary of that. And then your textbook recommends to model everything on the default tag, which is untagged. If I were to go into my tags, right now I've just opened up a brand new SketchUp model. I'm over here in my default tray. and there should be a tags panel here for you. And there's already a tag that comes automatically. It's called untagged. And so your textbook recommends to model everything on this default tag to actually never change which tag is the active one. And then once you have that geometry modeled, you would then group it and then place the group on the new tag. I think I might have I might have mentioned something different earlier in the year, being able to change which tag is your active tag. So we're going to try it today just to see how it works if we model everything on the untagged layer and then just move groups to different layers. So we'll see how that goes, but of course this is your model, you are free to do whatever you'd like. These are just kind of some recommended best practices that you might find helpful. And this default tag, untagged, you can't delete it and you can't rename it, so it's just always going to be there. To make a new tag, so we're here in the tags panel of the default tray. Remember, if you don't have your default tray open, you can go up in your menu bar to Window, hover over Default Tray, and it'll say Show Tray if it's not there. So you just check that on, and this little guy will pop up. To create a new tag, you'll hit the plus sign. It's over here on the left. If I'm hovering over it, it says Add Tag. So if I click the plus sign, a new tag is going to appear, and you can type whatever name in it that you like. This eyeball here denotes whether that tag is going to be visible or invisible. So if I came in and modeled, and I'm going to put all of that onto that new tag. If I then click on that little eyeball, everything on that tag should become invisible for you. And then you just click on that same area again to make it reappear. And then the pencil over here on the right indicates which tag is the active tag. So if I clicked over here on the right for that new tag, that pencil will move and that just lets you know which one is the active tag. Again, the textbook recommends not to change which is your active tag because they say to model everything on untagged. And I think this is because if I did change it to this new tag and I start modeling, maybe I forget what I'm really doing with my tags. I start modeling everything on this new tag. It'll be pretty difficult to go in and try and separate what you want on that tag versus what you don't. So they just recommend always stay on the untagged, group your objects, and then put the group on a different tag. And then geometry remains on the tag that you have modeled it on until you move it. So right now I'm on my default tag. The untagged is my active tag. So once I start to model, everything that I've modeled should be on that untagged tag. If I were to move it to this new tag I've created, and I start modeling, then everything that I create is going to be on that tag, which has been the active tag. So it's going to stay there until you move it. And then to move it, you select all the geometry, and then in your entity info, which is at the top of your default tray, it'll tell you what tag everything is on, and you can just use this drop down to choose a different tag, so I can send it back to untagged at that point. Some of this is kind of review that we've talked about, but just kind of reiterating it since we're going to be using tags quite a bit more tonight. And then something else that we've kind of talked about before, but let's revisit it. If I were to model a bunch of geometry here, all of this is on untagged. And then if I right click and make a group, then the group itself will also be on that untagged. But let's say that I then move my group to that new tag, so I've got just my group selected right now, and I can tell up here in my entity info, it's telling me that I have a solid group selected. And if I move the group to that new tag, then the group itself is on the new tag, but if I were to double click and actually go in and look at the individual parts and pieces, those things are still on untagged. So just because you've moved the group doesn't necessarily mean that all of the geometry within the group is going to move to that new tag. And the textbook says that this is okay. Tag visibility is still going to work. So I have my entire group on this new tag. If I toggle the visibility, the whole thing will still turn off even though those individual parts and pieces of the group were on untagged. The visibility settings are still going to work because the entire group is on tag. So the textbook actually does recommend to leave all of that loose geometry on the untagged tag, and only groups and components themselves should be moved to these new tags. Again, I think it's just kind of trying to help you stay organized in the fact that anything that is loose kind of stays on the one untagged layer or tag, and it's really just your groups and components themselves that are moving around to different tags. Everything should still function exactly the way you want as long as those groups and components themselves are on the new tag. If you ever do need to change the geometry inside the group or component to the new tag, you can, the same thing, double click in here to open up the editing box for that group, and then you could select all that geometry and then move it to a different tag. And then do be aware, let me go ahead and move all that stuff back to the untagged. So all of my geometry inside right now is untagged, and the group itself is on tag, the new tag right now. Just be aware that when you explode this group, everything is going to, all of the geometry is going to be moved to the same tag that the group or the component was on. So right now, my group is on my new tag, everything inside of it is untagged on that default, but if I were to right click and explode this group, everything is going to move to tag because that's what the group itself was on. So when you explode, everything moves to whatever tag that group was on. Any questions about anything that I just went over? Okay. And then final thing about tags, you can delete a tag except for untagged. To delete one, just come over to its tag over here in the tag panel, right click and select delete tag. This little pop-up box is going to show up if you had any elements modeled on that tag. It'll ask you, you can either assign those objects to a different tag, or you can just delete all of those objects that are on that tag. If there was nothing on that tag, it would just automatically delete the tag, no questions asked. But if there is geometry on that tag, it'll ask you if you want to delete the geometry or move it to a new tag. Okay, here's a few tips for efficient modeling as we continue moving through. Be sure to use the inference engine, SketchUp's ability to snap, or inference matching. That was when we were drawing some lines here and we wanted to make sure that we were lining up with this endpoint where we slowly hover over and start to drag it over. That was called that inference matching. So just be sure that you're using those cues. SketchUp is popping up these little dialog boxes whenever you're snapping to certain objects. The lines will show the color of whatever axis you're parallel to, so just be very mindful of that. We definitely want to make sure that we're modeling accurately so that we don't run into problems later on down the road. And then do remember that you can hold the Shift key down to lock the pencil and the Move tool in place. So if I'm on the pencil tool right now and I wanted to draw a straight line along the axis here, I can hold down Shift, and you might have been able to see that line got a little bit thicker, and now no matter where my cursor goes, it's going to stay locked onto that axis because I'm holding down the Shift key. Same thing with Move. If I wanted to move this line that I just created over to the right, again I can hit Shift, hold down Shift, and no matter what I do with my cursor, it's going to stay locked on that axis. If geometry is in an awkward location or something is in the way, you can always move stuff out of the way just temporarily and move it back in place later on. If you've got some walls that are in the way, either turn off the tag to make those go away for a second, or just feel free to move it out of the way for a second, do what you need to do, move it back into place. And if drawing parallel lines is kind of difficult for you, just have one parallel line and copy it around a bunch of places rather than trying to continue making parallel lines over and over again. Just have your one parallel line buddy, copy it all around, and modify it as needed. And then you can always undo, so Control Z, that will be your friend. And then if you're working with any nested groups or components, or groups within groups, or components within components, just be aware that sometimes you might need to open multiple editing boxes to reach the geometry that actually needs to be edited. So let's look at an example here. I'm going to go ahead and group this. I got my line in it too. Then I'm going to double click in here and maybe I'll go model a different object and continue to group just that. So now I've got a group within a group, a nested group. And so if I need to edit this one, I'm going to have to double click again further to get into that group. And so when you are editing a group, if you notice that geometry is grayed out, like for example, this initial cube that I made is now grayed out, that just means that it's in a different model space than what you're in right now. It's not part of the group or component that you're currently editing. So if you're like, why can't I do anything with this box right now? It's because you're not in its group. Click away to get out of it. Now I'm back kind of in that initial one. Click away again, and you're back into it. So it can get a little bit confusing if you're putting a lot of nested groups in, but just try and pay attention to where that editing box is that's letting you know what's inside the group. And just if objects are grayed out, letting you know that you can't edit them because they're not in your current group. If geometry is in the correct place, but it's not in your group, like for example, maybe I want to split this face in half, and I accidentally drew it kind of in my main model space. I drew that line, and then if I went to push-pull, I'm like, hey, why can't I do this? I should have two separate faces here. Okay, well I need to go inside of my group here, so I'm double clicking into that editing box. But again, my face is not split. That's because I accidentally modeled that line outside of the group that my box is in. If that happens to you, you can just simply go grab that geometry. You can Control X to cut, or if you go up to Edit and Cut, that'll take it away. and then go inside of your editing box here and edit, paste in place, and that should help you out and get it to where you need it to be. And it is pretty easy to accidentally forget certain geometry when you're grouping. For example, you might grab all the faces of your cube, but maybe you forgot the edges. So just make sure that you are double-clicking to select a face plus its edges. Remember, double-click will grab that face plus its edges, and then triple-clicking will grab everything that's adjacent. Yeah.
What's the difference between the level that's highlighted and then the level that has the little pencil next to it? Are they two different?
I think, so the one with the pencil on it is definitely the active one. I think maybe you just clicked on the CAD level one, and so that's why it's been highlighted. But anything that you model will be on the one that has the pencil next to it.
Okay, so it's the active one.
Okay, and there's one more thing that the textbook goes over. We're not going to see it in our assignment today, but I think it is important to mention. They model a mansard roof. Let me pull that up real quick just so that we can all see what it looks like. I think it's maybe on the last page of today's reading. Yes, so they're modeling a mansard roof here. So the bottom portion is larger than the top portion. But if I went and tried to do that, let me just grab a rectangle here. I'm gonna offset those edges maybe 2 feet. And then I want this square here to pull directly up to create that mansard roof. But SketchUp actually doesn't really let that happen. It tries to keep things coplanar, and it won't let you move up along the blue axis. Just everything is staying on that plane that it was originally created in. The way that you get around that is to hit the Alt button. So when you have the Move tool activated, click the Alt tool, and now you'll be able to pull upward to create that mansard roof type of style, or whatever it might be that you're trying to create. So that Alt key is going to be your override for SketchUp trying to keep things coplanar with each other. Questions on anything we've gone over? Okay, let's get started. So let's see here. I got your actual assignment here, exercise 10, beginning the tiny house, and then just, maybe you'll find this helpful to reference. You have some images here of kind of rendered versions of the floor plans and 2 of the elevations that we're eventually going to have as part of our tiny house. So if you just click on these, it'll kind of let you know what the final state is kind of going to look like. So if you do get confused or you're not really sure what something is supposed to look like, you can definitely come check out these images just to make sure that your house is looking as it's supposed to. And at the end, yours might not look exactly this way, but kind of the main elements of it, these images might be helpful for you. Okay. So within our assignment here, today we're going to be creating the walls, floors, and stairs of the tiny house. So our first step here is we are going to save some CAD plans onto your desktop and then import it into our SketchUp file. So you just hit this little download button here, and And then once you go over to SketchUp, just like we did last week with our CAD file, go up to File, Import, and then we'll go and find that download that we just grabbed. The units are set up correctly for this one, so we don't even need to look at the options. It'll come in, model units should be fine. It'll automatically adjust for us. So I'll go ahead and hit import here. Again, just telling us what's being imported and what's being ignored. Remember that dimensions, text, those kind of annotation items, they're not going to be brought into SketchUp. And you should have something that looks like this. And you'll notice that we also got a whole lot of new tags over here. Any tags that were already in the AutoCAD file, so in AutoCAD it would be layers, they get imported as well. And then I've also got a couple PDFs here to help you model your tiny house. If we look at the plans, should just be a PDF version of exactly what's being imported into SketchUp, except for you can just see the different, you can see the text and the dimensions on this one. So that might be a good reference for you, just letting you know what the different room names are and what the overall dimensions are. And then I've also got the elevations on this next sheet. We'll see the front, the sides, and the back. Those might be helpful for us as we continue modeling through. Okay, we're on step number 2. We're going to create 2 new tags called CAD Level 1 and CAD Level 2. Let's go ahead and do that. So over in your tags on your default tray, hit the plus sign to create a new one. Call this CAD Level 1. And hit the plus sign again, CAD Level 2. And then from here, we're going to explode the CAD import. So we're exploding this here. It came in as a component. So we're going to go ahead and explode that, and then we're going to group the first and second floors individually. So select your CAD file, right-click, and hit explode. And that should put it into its individual parts and pieces. You can see in my entity info, it's telling me that there are 725 edges now, all as individual geometry. So I'm going to create separate groups for the first and the second floor. So I'll grab everything over here on the first, right-click, and make group. And the same thing for the second floor. Grab everything, right-click, and make a group. And then my group for my first floor, up in my entity info, hit the tag drop down, and I'm going to move that to CAD Level 1. And then for the second floor group, again, up in the entity info, change that tag to our CAD Level 2. Let's just check it out. If I were to turn off these CAD levels, yep, they are working as they're supposed to. Yeah. This one here is the first floor. And then the one with kind of a loft looking area is going to be your Level 2. Yep.
Can you help me for a second?
Sure. Okay. We should have one group for your first floor on CAD Level 1, and one group for your second floor, CAD Level 2. And then we're going to stack the 2 floor plans. The first floor is going to be 1 foot above kind of the ground plane, so just 1 foot above where it came in automatically. And then the second floor is going to be 9 feet above the first, so 10 foot total above that ground plane. So first I'm gonna go ahead and move our first group up 1 foot. So I have that group selected, hitting M for move, grabbing a point and pulling upward, and type 1 foot, enter. And then to stack the plans, making sure that they're exactly the same, I'm gonna grab a corner of my second floor that I know is gonna line up. So maybe one of your outside corners would be a good one. I'm gonna grab this back corner here and place it right on top of my first floor. And then I'll move that one up 9 feet. Start to pull it upward and type 9 foot, enter. Now they should be stacked right on top of each other. I think I did this one right. Let me try mine again. That doesn't look right. There we go. 1 foot and 9 feet. All right, step number 3, we're gonna start to create the exterior walls. So last week, we actually just used the lines of the CAD file to automatically start to model upward from. But I think that's going to get pretty confusing if you've got a bunch of lines just kind of laying around while you're trying to model and extrude on top of each other. So I think it's going to be easier if we just leave them in groups and start to model on top of them. So the main part of the house, which is really this front area, not including the back toilet and the garden. Those walls are all going to be 20 feet high. I have this in the directions, and also if you just look at the elevations, this might help you kind of figure them out. It might be hard to see up on my screen here, but this does go all the way up to 20 feet, so that's where the top of these walls go. And then just a few walls on the back side will just go up to 10 feet. And then you might find it helpful to play with your edge settings. We can color the edges by material so that you can kind of easily see what each edge belongs to. So you'll see these colors over here in our tags that are all nice and different colors. We can make our edges display in those colors so that we can kind of easily see what belongs to exterior walls versus interior walls, etc. So if we go to our styles panel, still in our default tray here, we can go over to edit, and this first kind of cube here is your edge settings. And down here where it says color, right now they're all the same, but we can use that drop down and hit by material. And now that should change all of your edges to be the colors of your different layers. So we'll see if we look back at our tags here, exterior walls, which is what we're about to start modeling, are all in that bright pink. So hopefully that'll help you kind of determine what walls belong where. So we're going to make sure that we're on our active tag is still untagged, making sure your pencil is over there. If it's not there, you can just simply click over here on the right side of that tag and the pencil will move. And we're just going to start drafting over these pink walls. I'm actually going to turn off my level 2 so that I can see the first level a little bit easier. So I'll just click the eyeball for level 2, and that gives me kind of more free access to this level 1. And so I'll just start kind of drawing over where those pink lines are. Just tracing these, and I'm going to ignore any door or window openings right now. Just want to get those walls modeled in first and foremost. Making sure that we're hitting each of those endpoints. And once it forms a closed loop, a surface should appear. You can always just select it and delete it if it's in your way. We're going to want to keep a surface for our actual walls themselves, but this middle part we won't need. So let me go ahead and trace these interior walls now. Or not the interior walls, but the inside face of the exterior walls. And once I make it back around, I should be left with two separate surfaces here. So I'm just going to delete the one that's in the middle, because that's not part of my walls here. And let's just go ahead and trace the other ones. These are just kind of some low walls up here in the front. I'm going to erase that middle surface that was created. And I'll swivel around back here to what will be kind of your outdoor garden area walls. Get rid of that middle surface. Okay. So now I have kind of three separate surfaces here. I've got one that's kind of the main walls, one that's for these little garden walls here, and one for these sort of planter walls. I'm going to first go ahead and use my push-pull tool to extrude kind of these main walls up. I'm just going to do 10 feet first, because we're eventually going to separate this into a 10-foot portion and a 20-foot portion. And some lines might have come with you as you extrude it up. SketchUp's just recognizing some of those endpoints that followed. We can just use our eraser tool to get rid of those. Might have some on the back here as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and look at our elevations here. Got a few different things going on in the front here. So our planter walls, it looks like they are about 6 inches off of level 1, but then they should be coming all the way down to the ground plane as well. So we're going to have some steps that come up to our level 1. I'm actually going to, you know what, I did 10 feet up, but our first floor is actually 1 foot above. So I think I'll go ahead and move this back down just 1 foot. And then if I orbit down to the bottom side here, looks like my surface disappeared, but that's okay. I can just trace over one of those lines to close that surface back up. And I'm going to grab those and bring them back down 1 foot so that they're hitting the ground plane. And then these planter walls here, we'll go ahead and make them 6 inches above the first floor. Then I'm gonna orbit back down here and bring these back down to the ground plane as well. Sorry, I'm realizing maybe it would have been a little bit easier to keep that first floor just on the ground plane, but we'll get there. And then if I swivel around to our back area here, I'm gonna go ahead and look back at these elevations. Looks like these garden walls are the same, 6 inches above level 1, but then still meeting at the ground plane. So I'll do the same thing. Pull that surface up 6 inches, come back down, and pull that to meet our ground plane.
We're still moving from the bottom 1 inch, you said?
From the bottom 1 foot, so it should be on the ground plane, and then from the top 6 inches, so it's a total of 1 foot 6. Okay, and then from here, this is where we're gonna kind of split into what's gonna be the 20-foot walls versus the 10-foot walls. So right now, everything here, aside from the planter walls and the garden walls, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I've done everything right. I hit T on my keyboard for the tape measure. And from bottom to top, that is 10 feet. So I've done that right. I'm going to keep this back portion at 10 feet, but I want this front portion to come up to 20 feet. And so the way I'm going to do that is I just need to separate my surface into 2 surfaces, my surface of the top of my walls here. So with my pencil tool, hit L on your keyboard, I'm just going to split the surface right where that corner happens. And then using that inference matching, I'm going to slowly hover over that endpoint and start to pull my cursor over to the right. Those little those red dots are letting me know that I'm staying on that axis, staying parallel with where that endpoint is. And then once you reach the other side of the wall, you can create your line there. And now I have separated into the 2 separate surfaces. So that'll allow me to leave this back portion at that 10 feet while I can pull this front portion up to 20 feet. I'm also going to separate this front little piece here though, because if I look back at my elevation, this front piece only comes up to the top of level 2, which is at that 10 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that one where it's at. So I use the same method, just drawing a line across that surface to separate those 2 areas. So then everything here, I'm going to pull that up an extra 10 feet to make 20 feet total. So you can see that my back area and this front little wall is just going to stay right where it's at. And I'll pull up another 10 feet. Let's check it out, make sure that we are indeed 20 feet total. Yep. Erase any extra lines here. And then the last thing that I need to do is I just need to close over this area here. We are going to have a wall that comes across so that we can actually enclose the second floor. So a very similar thing, grab your line tool. And what we're going to do is create one surface as part of this area here and keep it separate from what's on the first floor. So I'm going to draw a line across. And now I should have just this surface up here that I can pull across to meet my other wall. Erase the extra line. So we should be looking something like this. Okay. And then finally, we're going to want to group all of that. So I'm going to triple click, and that'll select everything that is touching each other. If we grouped our CAD plans, those shouldn't be selected along with us because those are acting as separate geometry. So if I triple click, I should just be getting everything that I've just modeled. Right click and make a group. And then the group itself, just select the group once. In your entity info, it'll tell you that you've got one group. Go ahead and change the tag to exterior walls. This one should already be in there for you. Since it came in with the CAD plan, we didn't have to create a separate one. So now, like the textbook said, my group is on the exterior walls, but if I were to double click into this group and look at the individual parts and pieces, those are still untagged. But it should still work the same if I were to turn off my exterior walls tag. Those all disappear. All right, let's move on to step number 4, which is to create the interior walls. The interior walls are the ones that are here in blue. Or at least I think everyone's came in as the same color. Mine is blue. So for these, we're going to model these at 8 foot tall. Very similar here, we are just going to start modeling over these lines. Still on the untagged layer, I haven't changed which tag is my active tag. And we'll just start to go over these here. Again, I'm going to ignore any any doors. I just want to create the walls themselves. So it looks like there are 3 different areas, 3 surfaces that I'm creating here. Use the push-pull tool to bring those up 8 feet. We should be able to double-click those other ones. SketchUp will remember that we just went to 8 feet. We're just going to focus on the first floor right now. And I'm going to grab everything here. Again, triple click each of those areas. So I triple clicked to grab everything here, but it's obviously not touching what I've modeled over here. So I'm going to hold down on the control key, and that'll bring that little plus sign next to your cursor, which means that whatever we continue to select is going to add to the selection. So with holding down that control key, I'm going to triple click this portion of the wall I created, orbit around, still holding control, triple click this back wall. So I should have all of those, that wall geometry selected now, and then right click and make a group. And then for this group, I'm going to change the tag to the interior walls tag. Alright, ignore the second level for now. Let's move on to step number 5. We're going to create the first floor slab, and it'll be 1 foot thick. I'm actually going to turn off these exterior walls. Oh, you see what I should have done? Even the exterior walls inside of my CAD plan turned off since they were on the exterior walls tag. I'm going to go ahead and go into my CAD plan here. I'm going to double click that CAD plan. And I'm going to select everything and move those to the untagged. Yes. Okay, so I went ahead into my CAD plan and I changed everything that was inside of that CAD group to untagged. And that should help me if I turn off the exterior walls now. Those lines are still going to stay there because they're on untagged rather than the exterior walls. So if you find that yours are disappearing, double click into your CAD plan, grab all the lines and move them to untagged. Yeah.
If I thought I did, but they didn't. The exterior walls didn't get tagged before the interior walls were made. Can I still just do the exterior walls, or is it too late to group them? Like without selecting the interior walls?
Yeah, if they're touching each other, it'll be a little bit harder.
Okay.
You could be real careful and move around them, pick and choose, but it'll definitely be harder.
Okay.
Okay, creating the first floor. So the bottom of the first floor is actually going to stay on the ground plane, so then the top of our first floor is going to meet that 1 foot, which is where our CAD plan currently is. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle. Let me turn off my interior walls as well. That's where layers are going to be super helpful for you. You can turn off different things so that they're not in your way here. I'm hitting R on my keyboard for rectangle, and I'm just going to draw a big rectangle over the entire CAD plan here. And then I'll use the push-pull tool to extrude that down 1 foot. And then I'll triple click, right click, and make a group. And then I'm going to create a new tag for my floors. So I'll hit the plus sign over in tags and call it floors. Okay, I'll redo the floor just one more time. Just Control Z a couple times here. Okay, so I turned off everything except for my CAD level 1 so that nothing's in the way here. And then I'm clicking R on my keyboard to get the rectangle tool. And I'm going to make a rectangle over this entire thing. So I'm starting in the front corner, bringing it all the way to the opposite back corner. And that'll make a surface for us here. And then we want to push-pull that surface down 1 foot. So now the bottom should be on that ground plane. and the top will be at your level 1.
You said it was 1 foot?
Yes. And then we'll triple click to grab that entire block that we just made, right click and make a group, and then add a new tag, call it floors, and move the group to the floors tag. And then we're going to copy this up 9 feet to create the second floor slab. So I'll just select that group, M for move, Control for copy, and copy that up 9 feet, enter. So I copied it 9 foot above this first one, but if I grab my tape measure, the top of our second floor slab should be at 10 foot total, 10 foot from the ground plane to the top of the second floor. Okay, and then I'm going to turn my second floor CAD plan back on. See, I'm having the same problem here where not everything is showing up. So I'm going to turn everything back on, double click that second floor CAD plan, select all of the lines in there, and move them to untagged. So now if I turn off my exterior and interior walls, those lines are still showing up for us. So what I need to do with my second floor is just kind of edit it down so that my floor is just in the loft area. So I'll double click to enter the editing box for my second floor slab. I'm just going to use my push-pull tool to push all of these edges. And I'm going to line it up with the inside face. Let me go ahead and turn off that first floor CAD. Might get a little confusing. I'm going to pull these edges to meet the inside face of my exterior walls. So use SketchUp's snapping ability to find the edges of those walls. This one back, and this one will come to the inside face of this interior wall. See how SketchUp is just snapping once I hover over that. This one and it. And then I'm also going to carve out where these stairs are. So with my line tool, I'll just trace over this area so that we're creating a separate surface. So I should have one where those stairs are and one that I'm going to keep. And then this surface here, where the stairs are, I use the push-pull tool and just meet the bottom face, and it should disappear. So now we're left with a floor that's just going to cover that loft area. Might be helpful if we go look at a visual back in our modules. If I look at that loft floor plan, you can see we're trying to get the floor just in this loft bedroom area. So everything is open to below in the living area, and we don't want to cover up this back garden area. And then click out of that to exit the editing box for your group. So we should have our 2 floor slabs. Alright, step number 6, we're gonna create the stairs. There are 8 total stair treads, according to this drawing. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the second level cab, just so that I can see through here a bit easier. We're gonna go ahead and model these stairs here. There are several ways that you can model stairs. You could certainly create surfaces of each one of these and just keep pulling them up, each individual stair up until you reach the second floor. But we're gonna look at maybe a new technique. I don't think that we've seen the divide tool yet. I'm gonna create a vertical line starting at the base of my stairs. I'm gonna make that line up to the bottom of my second floor. So here I'm actually, once I found that blue axis, I'm gonna hold down the shift key so that it's locked on that blue axis. And then I'm gonna hover my cursor over the bottom of my second floor slab, and that'll get my line exactly lined up with that. Or you could type in 8 feet. That's the distance between the top of the first floor and the bottom of the second floor. Either way, you'll end up with an 8-foot vertical line here. And then since we know that there are 8 stairs, we're going to divide this line into 8 equal segments. If I select the line, right-click, and hit divide, I can start to kind of move my cursor up and down, and you'll see those red dots appearing. It's dividing that line into equal segments. So you can either move your cursor around to find the number of segments that you want, or you can simply type in 8, enter, and that should have given you 8 equal segments out of that initial line.
How high did you put the line?
It's 8 feet. It should be connecting the top of your first floor slab with the bottom of your second floor slab. Okay, and then we're going to use that inference matching to determine the stair tread depth. So I'm going to use this first line here. That'll be my first stair riser. And then with my line tool, my pencil tool, I'll grab that end point, start to move along the green axis, hit select or hold down shift to keep it on that green axis. And then I'm going to hover over the end point of that next stair. And so that gives me the depth of that stair tread. You could keep on going with the inference engine. Start to make your next stair riser on the blue axis and use your inference engine to find that next segment and just keep on going with risers and treads. Or we can grab these 2 lines that created our first riser and tread, and we can just keep copying it up, since it's going to be all the same. So if I've got those 2 selected, M for move, Control for copy, I'm going to find this end point at the base of the riser, and I can just copy it to the point, the far end of my stair tread. Make sure we're hitting that point. We don't want to accidentally be away from that point and those will end up in space. Make sure that we're grabbing exactly that end point to create that second one. And we can just keep on repeating that, copying those 2 lines up on top of each other. I'm going to swivel around to this side here. Keep on copying, or keep on drawing and inference matching, if that's the route that you took. eventually you should hit the bottom of your second floor. And then I want to create a closed loop here so that I have a surface that I can pull over. So right at that corner, I'm going to draw a straight line down. And then a straight line over to where we very first began the stairs. Oh, something's on the street. You'll see that mine is not closing, so something that I drew is not quite straight. So if yours didn't close, you have a non-straight line too. Let me try again. There we go. And then once you've got your surface created there, we'll push-pull it over and use the inference engine to find the width of those stairs. These are not up to code. These are very steep stairs. But for a tiny house, it'll work. And then I'm going to triple click the stairs that I just created. Rather, first I'm going to go ahead and erase this initial line that I made here. And then I'm going to triple click, right click, and make a group out of my stairs. And then I'm going to move that group to the stairs tag. Okay, in step number 7, we're going to move back to those interior walls. So I'm going to turn my interior walls tag back on. And we're going to modify these walls so that they wrap around the loft so that we've got a barrier and we don't fall off the loft. So what we're going to create here is just this wall here. And we're going to make that 3 feet above the second floor. So I'm going to need to double click into my interior walls group so that I can start editing here. And then the first thing I want to do, I'm going to leave these other ones where they are. I'm really just working with this front one. And you might just try and push-pull to keep this moving, but you'll see that our entire wall that we created is going to come with it. So we just need to split that surface into 2. You might find it helpful to turn off that floor real quick. We're just gonna use our pencil tool to create two separate surfaces here at this corner, so that this back side remains just at the first floor, and then this front side is what we're gonna bring up to our loft level. So I'll turn my floor back on. And so this front one, we're gonna pull up. If we bring it up 1 foot, that makes it flush with the top of level 2. And then we wanna pull it up an additional 3 feet. So 4 feet total from where it was at. And then we just wanna make sure that this section gets pulled over to enclose that loft area. So again, if I just tried to push-pull right now, this area, the whole wall is gonna come with us. So we just wanna separate this surface into 2 separate surfaces by creating a line right at this corner so that this bottom portion stays just on the first floor, and it's this top portion that we can pull over to meet. Let me just swivel around here. We're gonna meet the edge of that second floor. And it looks like I had a couple of extra lines created here. Just get rid of those. Turn my exterior walls on just to see how we're looking. Okay. The next step is step number 10. I guess I just kind of forgot 8 and 9, but the next one is to create the kind of masses and overhangs for the front elevation. I'm going to go back to our assignment here to take a look at those elevations. Or we can even, these are what we're trying to add here, this big mass that comes over, as well as this small overhang that kind of protects the porch here. I look at the elevation. Boom. We already started to draw this part of the wall. That's this area here. So we just need to see about this, and it looks like it's 3 feet deep. So it goes all the way to the top, so that was our 20 feet. And so it's gonna be 3 foot down from there, and it's gonna extend all the way across the house. So to do that, I'm going to double click into my exterior wall group so that I can start to edit this piece here. A couple ways that you could get this to work. We could create a guideline using our tape measure tool. We could click on either one of these lines, really, will get us there, and bring it down 3 feet. And then trace over that guideline here until we have a separate surface and pull it over to match the other side. Or if you didn't want to create a guideline, you could select this line here, or let's try it on the other side. You could select even this line and copy it 3 feet down. And that'll still give me that second surface that I can push-pull to meet. Either way. Erase that extra line, and that one's now created. Then let's take a look at this one here on the porch. Again, we've already created the wall for that overhang. So if I go back and look at this elevation, Looks like I didn't actually tell you how far across to bring it. But it is at the top of level 2, so it is at 10 feet, which I believe is where we left it in the beginning. But it's gonna be 6 inches deep. And let's go ahead and bring it over to match where these planter walls are. So, I'm still inside of my exterior walls group here. I'm gonna grab my tape measure tool and just make sure that this is indeed 10 feet from the ground plane to the top here, and it is. So we don't need to pull it up any further, we just need to worry about bringing the overhang over. So I'm gonna use that same method where I'm grabbing a line here, copying it down just 6 inches this time. And then with that new surface created there, I'm gonna pull it over and I'll hover over this front corner here of our planter walls. And that's where we're going to leave it. So it kind of lines up with this front corner here. Okay. Let's see here. The last step for today you know what? I just realized I forgot to have us create these stairs up the front, so let's go ahead and do those real quick. I'm going to double click into my floor slab group. And I just want to cut away some of these stairs here. So remember, we're isolated from the exterior walls, so if I just went ahead and tried to modify this, it's going to do the entire floor here. So I just need to draw some lines to separate us here. So I'm going to first separate it from the exterior walls here, and then also separate it from those planter walls so that we're left with just this area here. I'm going to turn off my exterior walls so we can see a bit easier. We've just created a surface for this front porch area. And then I'm also going to trace over these stair lines here as part of the CAD plan to further give us some more surfaces. This top one we're going to keep where it's at. This very first one, we're going to pull down to meet the ground plane. And this second one, we're going to pull down 6 inches. And I'm going to erase any extra lines that were created. And that should leave you with 2 stairs up to the front door. I'll go ahead and add that to the Canvas assignment just so that, you know, if you're looking back on the assignment later, you're not like, wait, how did she get those stairs? Oh, it's because I forgot it in the assignment. Okay, so now let's do the very last step. We're going to create roofs for both the main house and the lower back area. So let me turn on my exterior walls again. So we're going to create a roof right here over this main area, and we're also going to create a roof here for this lower portion. So for that, I'm just going to use my rectangle tool to create a surface inside of those exterior walls. And double click that to grab it. And then the roof is actually going to be 1 foot thick, and it's going to be 1 foot below the top of the walls. So I'll go ahead and first, I'll make it 1 foot thick. So I'll grab this surface here, pull it down, maybe turn off your exterior walls to help you see. Pull it down 1 foot. Triple click it and make it a group. And then we're gonna pull that group down 1 foot. So the roof itself is 1 foot thick, but then there's kind of a 1 foot tall parapet wall coming up above your roof there. And then we'll just do the same thing for the back area here. I'll create a rectangle over this portion. I'll make that 1 foot thick by pulling it down 1 foot. Triple clicking, right click, and make a group. And then pull that down 1 foot. It looks like I might have miscalculated some things here. That is okay. Or you know what I think we're gonna do? This one's just gonna be 6 inches. I'll modify the canvas assignment. And then within this group, just to kind of close off this area here, I think we'll need to go back to our exterior walls and just pull this surface down a foot to kind of close off this area. Let's see if I can get to that. Turn. Still working too. Here we go. Go in here, inside my exterior wall group now. I want to grab this surface and bring it down to meet. Just kind of close that off. Last but not least, create a tag for your roofs. And move both of those roof groups to that roof tag. And that's where we're going to stop this week.